way that we start this off is we always go back to your beginning. So, what made you decide to become a lawyer? And tell us a little about your law school experience.
I guess I would say my father was the person who pushed me in this direction. My father was a career military officer, and it was interesting. Part of his reasoning for, I think, pushing me to be a lawyer, he was always in a chain of command. And this was back in the late 50s and early 1960s. And he said, you can be your own person. You can be by yourself, call your own shots. And at that day and time, probably a large law firm was 4 or 5 lawyers, and most lawyers were solo practitioners. So that's what he knew. I think also that there's probably a part of him that said, "You're always arguing with me. Maybe you should go argue with somebody else." I might say, as an aside, I lost most of those arguments, and then I think, used it as a spur to get me to do the best I could academically. And fortunately, I was able to get into law school. I went to Carolina, graduated from law school in 1973, and at that point in time, really was uncertain about what I was going to do in my career. Really, though, frankly, the practice of law outside of law school was sort of a mystery. And I was fortunate enough to get a clerkship on the North Carolina Court of Appeals with Judge Fred Hedrick. And that was a life-changing experience. I was able during that 1 year clerkship to gain a lot of confidence. The judge instilled a lot of confidence in me. He let me draft a lot of the opinions, actually adopted some of my opinions, that draft opinions. And also, it was a challenging experience because I would have to go in and defend various positions that I was taking and arguments I was making in the course of writing an opinion, and the judge would and I would battle back and forth, and that honed a skill that I think served me well in later years. And also, he required me to attend every oral argument that was held, and in that day and time, there were a lot of oral arguments in the Court of Appeals, unlike today, when I think a lot of the cases go up on just a briefing. And it gave me, in a kind of a indirect way, confidence, because I saw some good arguments, some very good arguments, but I saw a lot of bad ones, and I thought, I can do this. And so that sort of is the introduction that I had to uh, pursuing the law, and my first foray into the post-law school arena.
And so you said the class of 73. Tell us about your law school class, the makeup of your law class. How many? And
We had approximately 250 in my law school class. And a sign of the times, probably out of that 250, 18 were females. My understanding today is that it's probably 60-40 at the law school, female versus male. But we were one of the first classes to have a significant number, and 18 was a significant number relative to what had preceded that. We had an increased number of minorities in my class. The law school experience was, for me, challenging. When I, as a history major, came from undergraduate school at Chapel Hill, it was mainly memorizing and repeating back on quizzes. The law school experience, the Socratic method that they used at Carolina, of course, was wholly different, teaching you how to think, and in the course of it, humiliating you occasionally in the classroom. But after I survived the first year, which was a challenge for my section, there were 3 sections, and the second year was a very enjoyable year. In the third year, I couldn't wait to get out. I figured if I was going to have to work this hard, I wanted somebody to pay me, and that's when I was fortunate enough to get the job at the North Carolina Court of Appeals.
so your first job, that courtship that the court of appeals you're telling us about, Then take us through your career. What was your career path after that?
Well, some things are, I guess, serendipitous, and the spring of 1974, as I was entering into the last few months of my clerkship, a friend of mine was at the firm of Porter Garrity, Horsfield, and Townsend, and that meant nothing to me, to be truthful. I take that back. There was a person in my class named Chan Porter, daughter of Jim Porter, the Porter and Porter Garrity law firm. I knew her in passing, but that was all I knew about Porter Garrity. And they were looking for someone as they were building their litigation department to join the firm. And I interviewed and was fortunate enough to be offered an opportunity to be with that firm. And it was again, as the clerkship, I was just a stroke of good fortune for me. It was a life-changing experience. When I came with the firm in the summer of 1974, I made the 19th lawyer in the firm. At that time, 19, I think, was the biggest law firm in Raleigh. At that time, 19 was probably in the top 5, 6, 7 firms in North Carolina, to give some perspective versus today. And I stayed number 19 for 3 years, and I learned that work flowed south. But in retrospect, it was a wonderful experience because there were some very revered senior folks that I got to work with that otherwise I probably would not have had the opportunity to do so. I worked closely with several of the senior lawyers, but also with several of folks who were closer to my age, and principally David Long, Marvin Musselwhite, John Shaw, people who were great mentors and gave me a lot of opportunities in my early years. And really, I've been indebted to them for what they did in my early days and early years of practice. One thing that I was telling somebody, we had a little panel at the law firm some months ago talking about the origins of what is now Porter and Sproul and the uh, days before Porter and Sproul at Porter Garrity and at Sproul and Sproul firm. And I was saying my first ethical dilemma came on my first day of work at Porter Garrity. Marvin Musselwhite, who to me was a senior partner, hard now to believe that he'd only been practicing 12 years when I joined the firm, but he was bigger than life. And he had been the one who had hired me, offered me employment. And so he called me in the first day and he was welcoming me and he said, "Now, how much money did I offer you?" And I hesitated for a second. I said, "Boy, this is a great opportunity." But I had to confess, $11,500, which was all the money in the world. And we had a laugh about that in later years. My early practice, because of my experience at the Court of Appeals, involved an appellate practice and argued at a fairly young age in my years of service, several cases at the Court of Appeals, ultimately in the North Carolina Supreme Court and the Fourth Circuit. And that was a great experience for me. I would also typically write briefs in conjunction with that. Back in the dark ages when I would hand my assistant my handwritten brief, and she would dutifully type it. We'd hope there were no errors in it. But I also, very early on, became interested in a somewhat fledgling area of the law, employment law. As of 1974, there had been a number of national, federal pieces of legislation that had been passed to eliminate discrimination in employment and housing and in other regards, including Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Age Discrimination Act of '67. And we had a case for a client that had a number of different locations, mostly from Burlington to the coast. It was a sex discrimination case under Title VII. No one in the firm knew anything about it. The case immediately caught my attention because I had worked for this company while I was the summer before I went to law school and my first semester in law school. I knew exactly what this lady was complaining about, and I understood it perfectly. And so the firm was kind enough to provide me with a couple of treatises that were just coming out on employment law. I went to some seminars in Washington and New York and Philadelphia, and again, this burgeoning area of the law, and just found it fascinating. And for basically 50 years of my practice, that's been a focus of my practice. I enjoy that area because it's got the best of all worlds. It allows you to counsel clients and try to keep them out of trouble. Sometimes they call you after the horse is out of the barn, which then leads to working through administrative agencies such as the Department of Labor, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Then that often leads, or sometimes leads, to lawsuits that you defend. And because I had had the appellate experience as well, I would follow those cases through from basically birth to death. And just a really interesting, fascinating piece of my practice. Also, I tried a number of business cases, and this in some ways evolved from my being number 19 and getting to work with some of the senior partners in different areas of the law firm. For example, it's hard for me to imagine, but I tried a tax case, I tried a will contest case, and things that were basically out of the substantive area that I was most comfortable with, but had an opportunity to try those types of cases. And then in the late 70s, for about 10, 12, 15-year period of time, I was involved in what was a fairly arcane area of the law, and that is representing automobile manufacturers in their relations with dealers. And principally when a dealership, when the automobile manufacturer would want to establish a new dealership in, let's say, Cary as opposed to Raleigh, and there was already an existing dealership of that nameplate in Raleigh. There's a statute that governs what you have to do, and we had some real fights over the years in that. So it was enjoyable. It was a different venture for me to get involved in that.
For sure, that's a totally different side of the law that I don't think we always think of. So, like, would it be like two Nissan dealerships, or would it be the make of the car, or would it be more like the Rick Hendrick guy who has this car dealership, and then he has that car dealership? Would you deal with that in both realms?
No, it was more the former. You have an existing Nissan dealership here, and if the proposed dealership is within, I think, 15 miles of that dealership, it depends on how much the population is in a given area, how broad the mileage is. Then you have to satisfy as the manufacturer all these various elements to make sure that it remains competitive and does not cannibalize what the existing dealer has built. And so, as you can imagine, so there was a lot of sparring that went on and with regard to that. And it was just very interesting because in addition to so many other facets of it, you had, for the automobile manufacturers, you had their expert who was like a world-class expert.
Yeah.
That's all he did. For the dealers, you had a world-class expert on their side, and they clashed, and would go at each other. And I mean, there were these types of uh, issues were being litigated all across the country. It wasn't just here in North Carolina. But that actually, uh, you know, morphs into something else that I think is been significant in the course of my career, and that is the growth of this area and what has transpired. I can remember we lived near Blue Ridge Road in our first place in Raleigh in a little duplex, and my wife could get on 40 and get to Durham Tech where she taught in about 15 minutes, no traffic. I went to the Carolina basketball game last night, and I thought we were going to never get there. So the change has been phenomenal. When I was in undergraduate school, we used to, on my way back home to Newbern, we used to cut through Cary, which had 5,000 people. So it's unreal to me what has happened in this region and also in Charlotte. But to take that part of my career a step further, in January of 1986, January 1st to be precise, we merged with, we being Pornegary, Hartsfield, and Townsend, with Sproul and Sproul from Rocky Mount. Had opened an office, a small office in Raleigh at the time of the merger. And that was really a very big change for all of us. Overnight, we went from a firm of about 32 or 33 lawyers to a firm of 55 lawyers. Overnight, our base of clients increased significantly. And it was a very interesting time in the sense that there was a lot of excitement over it, this new venture, but there's a lot of apprehension because mergers were taking place. We weren't the first by far, but they had been taking place for several years, and some of them had not worked. So fortunately for us, we had two very strong partners, two law firms that had been in existence for a long time. A Sproul firm had been in existence since 1883, and Pornegary Garrity had been in existence since 1946. So the combination of those two firms with a lot of, I think, quality lawyers, revered senior lawyers, a nice group of core lawyers in the prime of their lives, and some eager associates made for what ultimately I think has been a successful merger. Looking at it, this is our 40th anniversary, and I think we can look back and be appreciative of what's happened over that 40-year period.
Yeah, your answer, Brian knows this, you're answering so many of my questions going through, talking about, because I was going to ask about your career path and then changes in the profession and changes to the area, and even your car dealership example alone is just such an example of the change through your career. What about, and oh, and you touched on mentorship too, which I loved. Talk to me about the technology impact, because you started in, you said 1974 to 2026,
Yeah.
practicing law then and practicing law, and as it went through. Tell us about that.
We used to joke that in the 1974 period of time till probably 1986, 7, 8, high tech for us was a pencil with an eraser on it. And yet the world changed dramatically in probably 1987, 88, because that's when we first started having those on our desks, those computers that looked like TVs, the portable TVs. And it was again, a life-changing for lawyers experience. In some ways, it made it easier for us. In some ways, it was incredibly challenging. One of the real challenges was that there was so much time saved in so many of the tasks that you were undertaking as a lawyer. You had to figure out, how do we recoup this significant expenditure that we have in technology, personnel as well as all the equipment and everything else that goes with the technology. And that was certainly quite the challenge. There were challenges for people like me who are technologically challenged to get in the program. But I will say it certainly made our lives better. Now, it actually saved, in my view, the practice of law during COVID. We were able, without missing too many beats, like many other firms, to rely upon technology to save us and remote work. And remote work became uh, the order of the day. But remote work after the pandemic has also created its own issue because folks got used to it. It's a wonderful thing. But for young folks in particular, missing out on face-to-face mentoring to me is a concern long haul within the profession. I think that two things about technology among many that are concerning. One, cybersecurity. I mean, we're vulnerable if our systems are taken down. Where are we? I mean, we are so dependent upon those systems. And artificial intelligence. Where is that going? Now, I'm at the end of my career, so and most of my intelligence was artificial, but nevertheless, the young folks who are coming in are savvy to this already. I mean, my 5-year-old can help me whenever I have an issue, but my 5-year-old grandson, I should add. But the challenges that exist with that are real, and there will come a point in time, and it's a matter of some concern to me, that you can only raise your rates so much to try to recoup what you've got invested in technology. And the cost of technology are going up and up and up. So that'll be a challenge for this next generation of lawyers. And I hope that as a result of the technology, that mentoring doesn't suffer because of it, and that there can be some easy middle ground found. Certainly, I think remote work is here to stay in some form or fashion, but that that will be a challenge going forward.
Where where do you think that bar associations fit in with that in-person legal community, that in-person mentorship?
Well, they first of all, as just a preface to what I'm going to say, one of the things I'm really proud of with our law firm is the participation in the Wake County Bar. We've had several people who have been president of the Bar Association over my existence with the firm, and with other s- state bar, other entities that are involved with putting forth the best foot for the legal profession. And I just think that it is so important the role the bar association plays. I mean, I take advantage of the early morning seminars that are held. Some of those are focused on technology, very helpful to me. Again, although I'm at the tail end of my career, they're wonderful programs. It's a wonderful service provided by the bar because I get all my CLE through the Wake County Bar Association and through the North Carolina Bar Association Expert Series, and just some first class programs. So I think the bar plays an important role in that and bringing to our attention these issues that are out there technologically related and gives suggestions, best practices for how to respond to those.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I know I love that you come to the breakfast sessions. That's great. You're really glad to offer those. Um, I want to. You touch on so many great things. I want to ask, when it came to ethical dilemmas through your career, how did you deal with those? You can give examples or not. And what would you tell some of your mentees about facing those ethical dilemmas in the legal career?
Well, first of all, we all certainly have an obligation to know the rules of professional responsibility. We're fortunate within our firm to have uh, various partners who are designated as firm counsel that help guide us through any kind of minefields that we might be facing. And it's interesting over the course of 52 years in private practice to see the evolution of the training that goes with ethics, both from the Bar Association, the state bar, but also from our carrier, because they want to make sure of what we're doing is in line ethically. And I've been fortunate in my career to have very few ethical challenges, but mostly they center around conflicts. And we have a conflicts committee that helps you sort through those, knows the ins and outs of that, and can certainly help you with that. Occasionally, you run into a issue that is difficult to handle with a client that is not following, wants you not to follow the rules or is not cooperating with you. And would just say as an example, we had one client, a national concern, that really wanted us to play hide the ball with discovery, not respond to discovery, much more appropriately stated. They wanted us to just delay, 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 and that wasn't our style, and that was not something that was acceptable to us. We let them know that. They weren't pleased with us. We weren't pleased with them, and we parted ways. And it was a client of national renown that would certainly pay the bills, but it was a question of doing the right thing, which is always the bottom line of ethics. But we have many, we've had many lawyers within the firm. I say many. We've had 5 or 6 in my years who have been charged with keeping us, on the straight and narrow in terms of complying with all the various rules of professional responsibility.
How did you manage the caseload? And how did you manage it with life and through the years? And you've touched on client relations and all that. How would you manage all of that?
Well, talking about challenges, that was a challenge because at one point in time I was fairly busy trying cases. At the same time, I was involved with the management of the law firm, and I had 2 sons at home that demanded a lot of attention, and my wife who wanted me to give them that attention, to give her a break. And I trying to prioritize and trying to allot appropriate time to everything that was important was a challenge. But I look back at it and I wouldn't do it differently because, in addition to that, the firm has been a strong believer not only through the bar involvement, but through community involvement that we give back to the community. And many of us have coached sports when our sons were playing or daughters were playing. We have been involved with nonprofits, something I'm very proud of at our firm. We do I think, a fair share of nonprofit or what is, I guess, called low profit work for uh, charitable institutions. And being involved in a church was very important to me. So I have, I think I fell short on a number of occasions of having that balance, but it was always important to me, particularly as my sons were growing up, and now with 5 grandchildren, and at this stage of life where it moves at a slower pace from my professional life, I've enjoyed them and am reliving my faded sports dreams vicariously.
Well, you touched on it because I was going to ask you about life outside the law, but I wanted to back up because I heard a rumor that you have quite the sports background as a Tar Heel. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I back in the dark ages when freshmen were ineligible to play basketball until their sophomore year. I was a member of the 1965 uh, University of North Carolina freshman basketball team, and it was a great experience. I was telling somebody the other day that I could claim that first game ever played in Carmichael. I was sitting on the bench. I didn't get in the first game, but I did the second. And the two things about that team were, I think, significant. And it was a great, great experience for me. The first was that the coach was an individual who became quite famous, Larry Brown. Larry Brown is one of the few coaches to have won an NBA championship and a NCAA championship. He's in several Hall of Fames, and he was a 26-year-old with his first uh, basketball coaching job under Dean Smith, and he was quite the motivator, to say the least. We were a very good team. The other part of the story is that that team served as a nucleus from their sophomore through their senior years with some upperclassmen that were already there, of being the only team in Carolina history that has ever gone to 3 straight Final Fours. We didn't win because there was a school out west, UCLA, that won umpteen straight titles, but it was I was into the bench fella, but it was a great experience that I've loved thinking about over the years, and it was great to be associated with that program in some form or fashion. And I will say, because one of my teammates on that freshman team was also a high school teammate, and he was ultimately an All-American at Carolina, played in the pros. And so I got to know Coach Smith through his recruiting. And then once I was a freshman playing, that Coach Smith was certainly involved in an indirect way with the freshman pro. But everything that's ever been said about Coach Smith is absolutely 100% true. I will tell one story. My senior year at Chapel Hill, 3 years removed from the freshman program, I was a head resident advisor of a dormitory. And the 4 dormitories in that area, I forget the name for the 4 together, but they were having a social, and they wanted a guest speaker. And this was shortly after school had started in late September. And I was asked if I would see if Coach Smith would speak. And I thought, well, Coach Smith's such a busy man, and I hate to bother him, but, I feel like I at least know him a little bit. I'll go there. He could not have been kinder. And he brought with him a film that they had just put together of the 1967-68 team, which was the first team since the 57 championship team to play for the national championship. And we were creamed by UCLA in the national championship game. But he was showing the film, and of course it was the highlights, such as they were, of Carolina's performance during that, not much about UCLA at all. And during the course of it, Coach Smith turned to the audience and said, "I thought we lost this game." But a great human being, and not, just one of those fleeting moments in my life where I had contact with him, and to show, how he was to many others. That was just one little episode in my life, but to many others, He was there. If you played basketball at Carolina, he was there for you.
And so, yeah, so, I mean, I think it does it go without saying that you're Tar Heel basketball fan for life and your family is and all of it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Although my two sons, in an effort to force me into bankruptcy, went to private schools and not Chapel Hill, but they are diehard Carolina fans, and our five grandchildren are being brought up in the same culture.
Yet you still have the season tickets, you take the grandkids and
I have passed on my ticket to my Raleigh son. I have a Raleigh son who is a practicing lawyer here, has been for hard for me to believe 18 years, and he has three boys, so he rotates around taking them to the games, and they're 11, 9, and 5, and they're really into it. My other son is in Rockville, Maryland, and he comes down occasionally to go to a game with his brother. But his kids, even up in Maryland, are Tar Heels born and bred.
we love to hear that. Tell them in Maryland that it's about the heels. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I wanna ask you, Cecil, with your career here in Wake County and in North Carolina, what is your prediction for the future of the legal profession here in Wake County?
I guess I would say, based on past history, that it will continue to grow. That it will be interesting to see what form that growth takes. Will it be through mergers? Will it be through just adding folks? Combination of that. I think you will have more and more firms from primarily the Northeast locating here because of the Research Triangle and all that's happening here, all that's on on the planning board. That's in the near future. I think you'll find those offices establishing fronts here to address the needs of their clients, which will obviously require more lawyers from this area, from the law schools in North Carolina. And so I think that growth is definitely in the picture. I also say on the other side, and, what is going to be the impact of artificial intelligence? Is it going to impact the number of attorneys that you need? I just have no clue because I think everybody is trying, at least in our profession, scratch their head to understand how you can best use it. I'm sure y'all are familiar with the number of cases where lawyers have filed briefs using AI that have contained fraudulent citations and false case law holdings. And virtually two or three times a week, you read about someone now being severely sanctioned because of it. But it is, for those who use it correctly, it saves time. And saving time may save the need for additional personnel. So you could very well have a shrinkage of attorneys over the long haul, as opposed to what I said initially. But it'll be interesting. The certainly the law students who are coming out today are bright, and they come out equipped to handle the technology, and I'm sure that they'll be equipped to handle what challenges AI brings with it.
And what's your best advice to those new attorneys? Those starting out, even some of what maybe you told your son.
Yeah, I would tell them use every opportunity you can have to work with or observe other attorneys. If you're blessed to have mentoring like I did, all the better. Take advantage of it. And to the extent possible, as long as it's just asking you to get involved in something that you really don't know anything about, always say yes. Take advantage of those opportunities that are presented to you. And as well as within your firm, or if you're not in a firm, observe what other lawyers are doing. I was saying to somebody recently that in terms of mentoring, that I had observed as Court of Appeals arguments I mentioned earlier, but watching other trial lawyers and seeing things they did that you said, that's really special." Sometimes you say that's special because that attorney is so gifted, he can or she can pull that off, but sometimes that's special. I think I can do that, and you incorporate that into your body of work. But I would say also, for young attorneys, be prepared to give back. I think that's incredibly important, something that we, I hope to think, emphasize at our firm in giving back, not only to the profession, but to the community at large. And just the importance of that, I don't think can be understated.